10, 9, 8. Go for main engine start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, hello again, MouseWorks fans, and it's time for another installment of MouseWorks model rocketry builds. And this time it's going to be a little bit different. What I'm going to be building is I'm going to be using the Estes V-2 rocket. This is their medium-sized one. They used to make a huge one years ago, and then they made this one, which was a little smaller. But anyways, this one's going to be a little bit of a conversion. I'm not going to actually make it a V2 rocket, although I might build another one straight as a V2, which is kind of an interesting design. But this one's going to be based on a guided air missile that they had that was air launched called the Rascal, and hopefully there'll be some pictures up here of it. And what it was made for was to thwart the threat of large bomber formations that were coming over from Russia. And basically what it was a air launched missile that would go into the heart of the bomber formations, which would be, about 100 aircraft plus, and it would explode with a nuclear detonation or a very high explosive and destroy most of those 100 aircraft all at once. So it was a Cold War weapon that was pretty feared, and they did quite a bit of testing with it. And anyways, very interesting rocket indeed. So we're going to do a few conversions on this V2, which lends itself to mostly what the Rascal looked like. So I've done a few of these before in experimentals, and I've run into some snags of certain things. For example, the forward fins cannot be put on it because they are, in the real guided missile, they move, and the putting in a model rocket, they're too big for the front, and they make the rocket just go way out of control. So we're going to build it without the fins. I might just do a dummy cone with the fins on it just for a model, scale model look. But for launching, it's only going to have the rear fins, so which I've done successfully before, but I want to try it again. So let's get started on this and see what we can figure out. Okay, as I do all my rocket builds, I will start with a description of the parts in the package, and this one is a skill level 3 because you'd have to do some cutting on it that is not normally done on a rocket. 22 inches long, and it uses a engine, a D or an E size engine for it, and actually C11, D12.3, E9.4, E12.4, E6.96, E12.6. So I'm not sure which one we'll do, but it does give you those options. So let's see what's in the package. So first up, we've got the nose cone. This is a nice big nose cone. This is quite a bit bigger rocket. I like this size rocket. I like the mid-power stuff. So have some fun with these. Unfortunately, Estes doesn't sell this, the pointy nose in the BT-80 tube anymore. I don't know why. They haven't sold it for a long time. They sell the rounded one, but not this one. So you have to buy this kit to get it. Okay, up next is the body tube. Then we have a tail cone, which is specific to the V2. Now these little nubs have to be cut off because it's a through-the-wall fin unit that actually goes through here and touches the tube inside and glues real tight. That's because it's gluing to plastic, so it's going to have some issues with strength. I'll probably be using some epoxy to make sure everything is really super strong. But anyways, that's the tail cone. We have the bag here, some parts. Okay, first up is actually a little decal sheet. That's interesting. They used to not have that, but it's a little couple gray pieces for it. Got the instruction booklet there. We'll go through that in a sec here. Set that aside. And the fins, again, laser cut, very nice. First time I built this rocket, they were die cut, and that was a real pain in the neck, but these are going to actually be modified. I don't think I'll have to replace them. I'll actually be able to make the fins for the Rascal out of this piece, the pieces that we have. So then we have the engine centering rings that will center the engine tube inside the main body. and a couple other pieces there. Okay, let's see what else we got. We got an engine tube. This one's really long. I guess to keep the pressure from dissipating in that large tube, we'll have this so it'll actually be able to blow off the nose cone. Got a dummy engine, which is a E-engine size. And last up we have this little bag. Alright. We've got a spacer for using D engines in there since they're a little shorter than the E's. We've got a engine hook retaining piece that will keep the engine hook from snapping off. Got the engine hook itself. We've got a parachute, and I think this only comes with an 18-inch parachute. I'd like to use a either an 18, well I'm going to use a fabric one, but either 18 or possibly 24-inch, just to make sure we get it to land softly. Probably go with a 24-inch. Launch lug, single launch lug. Might have to cut that in two, but I'm not sure yet. Engine block, that'll keep the engine from going through the rocket itself. Got some safety warnings on engines and some safety code. We've got a shock cord made out of rubber. If you watch any of my other videos, you know I'd always replace that with a nylon shock cord that is actually made of fabric with rubber tubes inside of it, so it works a lot better. This stuff unfortunately is very fragile. And we've got a little pack of clay here, and this is going to be packed in the nose. Since this rocket is so short and the center of pressure and the balance, center of gravity or center of balance are so close to each other, we have to put this in the nose to make sure that we move that center of balance forward of the center of pressure so it flies correctly. I will probably, even though I'm going to be cutting down the fins and lightening it up in the back, I am probably going to put a little more clay in the nose. I found with my other experiments that on this particular rocket that it does need a little bit more to fly perfectly straight. It is going to make it a little heavier, but this thing is going to be quite a large engine in it, so we shouldn't have any problems with that. So anyways, that is the parts, and let's take a look at the instructions. Okay, before I get into the instructions, I just want to clarify that this modification on the fins is going to be an experimental type rocket. If you ever want to do anything like this, I would suggest that you make sure everything is working right and you have a little more skill to building rockets. You can get computer simulations. There's one called Rocket Sim from Tim Van Milligan at Apogee Rockets, and you can put in all the parameters of what you are actually doing to your rocket, and it'll tell you whether you're going to have a successful flight or not. So just remember, experimental rocketry is just that. When you launch something that you build yourself or alter a kit rocket, just make sure you are in a wide space. Best thing to do is be with a club that knows how to handle these kind of things, because they can get out of hand. So just fair warning on that. Okay, so first page is going to be your basic supplies: scissors, pencil, ruler, sandpaper, white glue, or actually I'm using carpenter's glue, modeling knife, tape. I suggest the Tamiya tape, low tack, but it works real good, won't tear up the tubes. CA that they're talking about here, and then they don't show epoxy, but I'm going to use epoxy, and paint. Here they've got all the parts that we just went over with. If you need any of these parts, you could probably get them from Estes, or if you need to replace them after a crash, they do give you the stock numbers, which is really nice. Okay, moving along here. First thing we're going to do is put together the engine tube, and there's quite a few pieces that are actually need to be very carefully placed because it's going in that plastic tail cone. Okay. Cutting off those pieces to the tail cone, opening it up, front and back. You can use an X-Acto knife, we'll use a saw. Okay, mounting the actual engine system into the body. If you notice that the shock cord actually goes to the actual engine mount. That's going to make it a lot stronger than having those little pockets, even though those pockets have never failed me. But this rocket's so short, it'll work just fine. And they're using the CA to put the some of the parts together there. Preparing the fins, sanding the fins, marking the launch lug line. And then they're getting into the 4-fin system here, which luckily the Rascal is a 4-fin, so we'll continue with that so we don't have to modify any of that. Putting the clay and weighting the nose. I'll throw up a little thing here on center of gravity and center of pressure. I did do a little tutorial of it on my Sasha build, so you can go back to that too to look at that. So looks like a fairly straightforward build, just a little more complicated in some of the techniques that you have to have. So okay, let's see where we go and get started on this. Okay, the first thing we've got is to actually make some of these measurements on the actual engine tube. So we've got a 1/2 inch, a 1 inch, a 3 1/4, and a 6-inch mark. And the way I'm going to do those is I'm going to use the Estes fin or a marking guide here. And this is really quite a handy little thing. You actually just dial in what you want and you can make a mark of everything you need. So basically the way this works, this slides down and you just measure, get it to the measurement you want. You put your pencil through here and it will mark the tube as you roll it around. So the first mark we want is a 1/2 inch. Now trying to do a 1/2 inch like that is really hard to get it straight, so we're going to do it from the opposite side. So let's measure this and see how long this tube actually is. So we've got 6 inches there, so it's 8 inches tall. So we'll do it from the opposite side. So we want 7.5 inches. So we'll take this down to 7.5 inches. And then that'll put a 1/2 inch mark on the front. So we'll put that in there, put our pencil in here, and while trying to press that pencil on there with slight pressure, we're going to turn the tube and it's going to make a line for us. Okay, so there you can see, hopefully, the mark on the tube. Get you a little closer on that so you can see that there. So we've got the 1 inch mark there. The next one is 1 inch. So we can go 7 since we're doing this opposite. Remember that. Okay. And we'll turn the tube. That one didn't come out too good. This is kind of a difficult process, but it doesn't work too bad when it goes straight. So anyways, so we'll get that as a straight mark there. We'll erase the crooked mark. Okay. Try it again there. Okay. So there, now we've got the 1 inch mark from the base. Now we got 3 1/4. 3 1/4. Always measure twice, cut once, draw once. So 3 1/4. Make sure it's not 3 1/2. 3 1/4. Now this one we'll do as normal, as if it's from the base. So we'll flip it around. Okay. And give you a better shot of it here. Okay. There we go. That worked a little better. Okay. And then we need a 6 inch from the base. And what I'm going to do, just to make sure I don't screw this up, is I'm going to mark on the tube the bottom B for bottom, T for top, just so I don't screw up my measurements. Okay, we want 6-inch. Okay. We do it again. Okay. So now we can double check. Always double check with your measurements. We've got 1/2 inch. Looks good. We got 1 inch. We've got 3 1/4 inches. Looks good. And 6 inches. So we are set on our marks. Okay. Now we are ready to get to the next step. Okay, we're going to be putting our dummy slug in to push in this engine block to the depth we need, and it has to stick out 1/2 inch. So it's 3 3/4 inches long is the length of the actual tube itself. You can see it's 3 3/4 long. So again, I'm going to reverse the measurement and take that 1/2 inch away. So it should be 3 1/4. Just subtracting the 1/2 inch, and we will make a mark again on that piece. I just like always, instead of just making a tick mark, I always like to have a line going all the way around. Just makes it easier than trying to find the tick marks and find the right ones. Okay, so now that mark has to be 1/2 inch. Let's double check it. And that is 1/2 inch. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to put this in there with that slug in front, push it to that 1/2 inch mark, and that's going to set it. Now, to put the glue in there, I want to actually make sure I put the glue in the right area. So this area is actually going to be where the piece is going to be, the actual engine mount. You can see it's going to be right there. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I get glue in that area right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stick, which these are little cuticle sticks you can get at a Sally's Beauty or something like that. And I'm going to mark, I'm going to go just a little past it because it's got a little paddle piece here. And I'm going to mark on the pencil where the stop line is. Okay, and then I'm going to put the glue on there and then push it in there. Then I'm going to stop at that little line there, and that tells me how far I should be able to spread the glue. That way I don't have glue all over the place, or worse yet, too far forward. So let's get out. We're using Tight Bond carpenter's glue, which works the best. It does dry pretty quick. Some of the keys to this is put a lot on, it actually lubricates, so it'll actually give you time to push this in. Put a little too little, it just gets too hard too fast. So we're going to take the stick and we're going to pick up some of this glue. We're going to go into the depth and start putting some of this glue into the engine tube here. And we kind of want a bit of it. I want to make sure this engine block holds. I'll put a little bit more, because I can't get at it from the other side to do a fillet. So I need to make sure there's plenty of glue. Okay. There's now plenty of glue down in there, and before it all gets too sticky and dries, I'm going to push this block in here, then I'm going to push this in until it actually comes to that 1/2 inch line. You'll have to move kind of quickly but smoothly. So push it, you'll feel it start to hit the glue right about there, and then we will retract this piece. And then that will actually glue in that ring in the correct area. You can double check it. Okay. So we will let that set in there, and that should be in the right place. Okay, the next thing up we're going to do is put this engine hook in, and I like to always have a straight line to put the engine hook in because I put my share in crooked over the years. So what I like to do is I'm going to mark a line all the way down this tube straight, and I'm going to use this tubing deal here too. They actually give you a little slot in here that you can actually draw a straight line. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hold it there, and we're going to just pick a place. Doesn't really matter since we don't have any real place to get wrong right now. And then I'm going to extend it a little bit here. Okay, so now that way when I put the engine hook in, it's not too far one way or the other. I can lay it right down that center line. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually cut a hole for this back of the engine hook, and I just a slot, and it's got to be pretty close to the size that this is. So it's about an 1/8 inch. So we're going to put a slot in there, and we want to make sure that this cuts inside of that, or towards the bottom of the ring we just put in. If we hit the ring when we do this, we need to move it back a little bit, because otherwise you're going to have an issue. This is supposed to butt up against that ring. So basically it's supposed to hit. Put it in there and we'll just snap it in. There we go. So now it missed it, and it's right up against that ring. So now again, the reason I put that center line is so that this is perfectly fitting, and we're ready to put in the actual retainer. And what the retainer will do is it'll hold this engine hook and keep it from breaking off. So the engine, just so you know how this is going together, that goes there, and then we have a ring here and a ring here and a ring here. So this one will go in first. I think it'll be the easiest to work with. Actually, no, we'll do it, stack it, the ring, this, and then the other rings, because it might be hard to get over this hook. So let's cut those rings out. They are both there's 3 of them. 2 are the same, 1 is different. Get that glue out of the way so we don't make a mistake. We cut these rings, they're nice and laser cut. Just make sure you don't put a slice in them, because that can compromise the strength of them. We have the little piece there, that's going to be for the shock cord. Pop that out. I'm going to pop the other ones out and move to the next step in getting them ready. I'm going to sand those little nibs off, and we'll be ready to put them on. Okay, I'm ready to put the first ring on, which is the small ring. I've got it all sanded down. That way all those nibs are out of the way, so everything is flush with the tubing. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on this last ring here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth it out so I can see the ring still. I just want this to hold it long enough that then I can do some fillets on the sides, which will reinforce it, so I don't need a whole lot of glue on this area here. I'd rather see it than have it completely glued. Okay. So now we're going to slide this on. Doesn't matter really which direction it goes. And we're going to get it right in the area where those lines are. Now I'm going to make sure that it lines up with those lines, because I want it straight as possible. So I want this to be 90 degrees here. So it's a little sloppy, it's a little loose, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it sit there, double checking, making sure I'm on the line. Once it dries, I'm going to actually put a fillet on the side here, and that will actually reinforce everything. So we will set this aside to dry. Okay, now that this has dried a little bit and it is not moving, I'm going to go ahead and put this retainer coupler on here that will actually go over to this line here, and that's going to hold this hook from flopping around too much. And so I'm going to put, again, a bead of glue around this area here, being sure not to cover up the actual line, so I know where to stop. Make sure that that doesn't get crooked. And again, the more the glue, the more slick it'll be. But again, you don't want too much. Okay, so now we're ready. Slide this little retaining ring on the back. Make sure my hook is square on that line. And then I'm just going to push that in. And once I'm where I want it, I'm going to give it a turn. Get that glue all the way around. I'm going to clean it up with my finger. And that will hold this engine hook in place. Alrighty. So now we're ready to put in the next ring. Okay, the next ring is going to be this one, which is the big one, but it's the one without the slot. This one goes on the end. So just make sure if you're building this, you get that correct. And again, I'm going to do the semi-transparent glue job here, so I can see that line. Just smoothing it out. Okay. Take this ring, again, doesn't really matter which direction it goes on. This one's a bit of a tighter fit. I'm going to slide that into the glue. You got to push it on all sides to get it to move. It's easy to get this thing off kilter. Okay. We will bring it up to the line. Make sure it's where I want. Make sure it looks square. That's looking pretty good. I mean, at this point, if you had a little small square, you could check it. I'll clean up the glue a little bit with my fingers. So, just make sure that it is on that line. And we should be good on that. That holds pretty quick, so just take note of that. It's going to go pretty darn quick. So I'm going to take some more glue here, moving right along. This is actually a very quick build on this. So we'll take some more glue and we're going to do the back ring. Okay. Again, semi-transparent. Okay. Again, it doesn't matter which direction this goes in, but they do show that this slot shouldn't line up with the hook. So we'll do that anyways, just to be consistent. Okay. We will wiggle this into position. Making sure it's on that line. We're looking good. Do a little cleanup so at least I can see that I'm on the line. Okay. A little on this side. There we go. So there we've got the whole engine mount pretty much assembled. We just need to make some fillets to reinforce that. But so what I'll do is I will just take a little bit of glue here. We'll do the one side first and let gravity work for us. So we're just going to take some glue and put it in the ring here. Making sure to push it down into the gap. This is to reinforce everything, just keep everything from moving. Okay, I don't want to go all the way to the hook. Okay, now I'm actually going to take a Q-tip, a little water. I'm just going to go around, clean up that fillet. Okay. If I want to put a little more glue on there, I can, and I'll do the other ones, and we'll be done with that. Let it dry, flip it over, and do the other side.